Okay, our next segment is on finding great photographs. So hopefully, so far we've talked about why great photography matters. We've talked about what makes a great photograph, and hopefully now you're really thinking about how you can incorporate photographs into your data visualizations and how you can make strong products, whether it be a brochure or a poster or a website or even a video, using great photography. And now we want to take you one step further and talk about how you can find great photographs to use for your data visualization products. So, again, my hope is that you've realized the need to incorporate great photography into your products and that you're ready to find some photos. Now, when it comes to finding great photographs to use for your products, there are three things that you really have to spend some time thinking about. And those factors are time, cost, and image rights. We're going to go over each of those factors in a little bit more detail, but the upshot is that some options for finding great photographs to use take you more time or take you less time. Some options for great photographs will cost money. Others do not cost money. And you always need to consider rights, whether an image is copyrighted or there's another license that the image is under, because that's very important. You don't want to make a product and take someone else's image and use it if you don't have the rights to use that particular image. So image rights are really important. We're going to talk about copyright and Creative Commons. So those are three factors that are going to really influence heavily your decision of what photographs to use when it comes to finding photos to use for your data visualization products. The first factor, of course, is time. We never have enough time, so it's very easy to say, well, I want the option that takes the least amount of time. But if really your limiting factor is money, then you may have to spend a little more time finding great images to use. These things seem to, you can pick two, but probably not three. So, you can find something that's going to be quick and you'll have rights to use, but it might cost you some money, etc. So time is one of the important factors, and looking for great images can be time consuming, but there are options that help you do it a little bit more quickly. Money, of course, can be a factor. So there are plenty of images out there that you can use for free. Oftentimes they require some kind of attribution. But there are images out there that you can use for no charge. But many photos out there are copyrighted. And if you don't know whether an image is free to use or copyrighted, you should always assume it's copyrighted until you can prove otherwise, because you don't want to use someone's image without permission. That can actually result in legal action. So it's very important to be careful about choosing images to use for your products. So let's talk a little bit about copyright and what copyright is and why it's important for you as somebody that might be putting together products. Here's what you need to know about copyright. Copyright is really a property right. So when you create virtually anything, but let's talk about photographs for a second. When you create a photograph, the act of creation, you own the copyright to that photograph. The moment you create that, you own the copyright to a photograph. Now, if you really want to protect yourself in terms of copyright, there's actually a process where you can register your copyright with the U.S. Copyright Office to really protect your rights. What happens is if you own the copyright and somebody violates your rights, if it is registered, you have a greater ability to recover the cost of legal action that might be taken to recover damages due to your copyright. If you do not have it registered, you can still take legal action, but you may be accountable for legal fees that may make it really difficult for you to pursue a copyright infringement case. So copyright is really, it's a property right. It was under the Federal Copyright Act of 1976. Photographs are protected as copyrighted from the moment of creation. So the moment you make a photograph, it is copyrighted to you, which means that any photograph you see out there floating around on the internet, somebody has the copyright, to that particular photograph. Now, some people will allow their images to be freely used, others do not. So it's important to know the difference, but assume that something is copyrighted. So unless you have permission from the photographer, you can't copy or distribute or include in your publication their photographs or create even derivative works from their photographs, assuming that an image is copyrighted. And as I mentioned before, copyright infringements are pretty serious. If you reproduce somebody's photograph on a website or a brochure or a poster, it can result in civil and criminal penalties. So it's very important to understand copyright is something that's pretty serious. In terms of copyright guidelines, as I said, assume a photograph is copyrighted. Photographers often will license their photographs. So let's say as a photographer, I have an image and you want to use it on the cover of your report. If you contact me, I would say, well, I offer licensing and this is how much it would cost for you to license that photograph. That's very common. Photographers will offer that. Now, a lot of amateur photographers are happy to have you use their photograph if you give them attribution. Professional photographers, under certain circumstances, will let images be used without payment, but oftentimes that's how they make their living. So licensing photographs is what they rely on to make their income. So don't expect that somebody's going to give you something for free just because you ask. It's like going to the store and asking for a loaf of bread for free. The photographer has a value to the particular image, and they typically would expect to get reimbursed. As I said, many photographers, if it's for education or nonprofit use, will allow images to be used at no charge, but don't assume that. Always ask for permission or what the usage fee is. So, you may start off by, contacting someone and say, hey, I saw your beautiful photograph. I'd like to use it on my report. Can I get permission to use it on the report? I'd be happy to credit you. Do you typically charge a fee? Ask these questions. Reach out. Don't just assume that, hey, I found it on the internet. I can use it wherever I want. Somebody may own the rights. And, if they find out that you were using it, they could take action against you. So it's important to make sure that you ask permission rather than just assume that you can. So that is what we talk about when we talk about copyright. Now, copyright, again, you can ask permission, you can get permission, you can use an image. But there's another type of license called Creative Commons. And if anybody's ever heard of Creative Commons is a type of usage that basically encourages people to use their work, whether it's a photograph or some other work of art. People that register their images with Creative Commons will allow people to freely use, to kind of alter, to build upon their work. Sometimes even if it's used commercially. And usually what they offer is they ask for some kind of attribution. But Creative Commons has several different licenses with several different limitations. So just because something is Creative Commons doesn't always mean that you can use it in the way that you may want to use it. So it's important to know a little bit about Creative Commons before deciding, hey, it's Creative Commons, I can absolutely use it. So what do you need to know about Creative Commons? Well, Creative Commons is a license. It's one of several public copyright licenses that enable the free distribution of otherwise copyrighted work. So it's basically saying that, hey, this image is copyrighted, but I'm going to let you use it for free under a Creative Commons license. I'm going to ask that you give me credit, but I'll let you, use it, build upon it, do other things with it. These licenses offer a lot of flexibility to the author of a photograph or a photographer, etc. They can choose only to allow it to be used in that way for non-commercial uses. They can say, you can use it, but I don't want you altering it in any way. So there are different terms that can apply to a Creative Commons license. It's important to know what those are. So here are some of the Creative Commons licenses. The icons here tell a little bit of the story. So when you go to look for these, sometimes you'll actually find the icons with them. The first icon there is attribution. It basically says that you can use this work, but you've got to give the author credit for it, which means that if you're doing a publication or a brochure, you can use it, but you've got to make sure people get the appropriate credit. There's a share alike, and this basically says that you can make derivative works. So maybe you're going to take the image, you're going to use it as a background and layer some things on top of it. So you're using it kind of in a derivative way, and that symbol means that you can use that under those conditions. There's the non-commercial one, which is the next one, and non-commercial means what it says. It means that, yeah, absolutely, you can use my image for any non-commercial use. Maybe it's for education, or maybe it's for just an artist project, etc. But if it's commercial, you can't use it. So you can't say, I'm going to take this image and I'm going to make it the poster for Joe's Pizza, because that image is not licensed for commercial usage if it is marked in that way. And the equal sign says no derivative works. It basically means that, yeah, you can use the image as it is, but you can't change it, you can't remix it, you can't base images off of it and use those. So again, these are different options under Creative Commons. Creative Commons is a great place, a great way for you to use images without having to pay licensing fees. But you do need to be aware of what the limitations are on Creative Commons and use them appropriately. So with that said, we know that some of the things we have to consider here. The first thing was really rights, it was thinking about the image rights and whether, we need to work under the assumption it's copyrighted, whether we can use a Creative Commons license, whether we need to, pay a licensing fee, etc. The next thing we have to think about is time. Do you have a lot of time? Do you have a little time? It can make a big difference where you look for images, how much time you have. Money is another thing to think about. If you've got a little bit of a budget, you may be able to shrink the time down because you can find like a stock photo service where rather than having to Google around the internet all day long, you can go to a stock service and very quickly find good quality photos. So if you have a little bit of a budget, sometimes that can help shrink the time a bit. Rights are always a concern. But again, if you're paying for images, you're able to acquire the rights to use them. So the next question is understanding that you need to be mindful of copyright, understanding that finding images is a balance of time, money, and rights. Where do you look for great photographs to use for your products? Well, a really great place to start, and I'm sure you guys are all aware of this, but is the EN Image Library. So on the EN website, there is a image library that consists of cost and royalty-free images. They do require attribution. There's almost 4,000 photographs there, things that are largely focused on science. There's also icons and all sorts of great things that you can use. Let's take a quick look at that resource. So let's say that you were doing a project and you wanted to find an image that you could use. You could come to the EN Image Library and you could do a search for, I'm going to do a search here for blue crab. And I'll find that it brings back images. And you can see here you could even select, I want a photo, I want a vector graphic, and we can uncheck things there. So let's say we just want to focus on photography, and there is an advanced search as well. We'll try this, and this will give us back several photographs related to blue crabs. So you can sign up for an account here. You can download these images to use in your presentation. And of course, you want to make sure that you attribute them properly. So this is a fantastic resource. It's free. It's easy to use. And I would even encourage you as students, you may even want to contribute photographs if you're out there shooting photos to the library as well. So let's go back to our presentation and talk about some other options. So EN is a really good choice. There's obviously no cost because it's got a nice search engine, doesn't take a lot of time, and you have the rights to use the images, so it's fairly well balanced. When we get to some other choices here, Flickr. Flickr is a photo sharing website. It's owned by Yahoo. Flickr is a way for photographers to share their photographs, most of which are copyrighted. However, there's a Creative Commons section of Flickr. And in that Creative Commons section, you can find images that are cost and royalty free. There are multiple license options, so there are all sorts of images that you can use that may be, maybe non-commercial, maybe they're no derivative works, but there's different licensing options available. There's almost 60 million photographs there, so a really wide variety. The one thing I would say is that in terms of kind of cost, time, and rights, cost is none. Rights, well, if you're using the Creative Commons option, is nothing that you really have to be concerned about. But with that many images, it may take you a little longer to find good quality images. So the time might be something you need to think about there. And let's look at the website. So we go to Flickr. There is a Creative Commons page here, and you can begin to look at this, and it shows you, hey, these are the different license options. This requires attribution. This is attribution, but no derivatives. This is non-commercial attribution, no derivatives. And you can, of course, go to see more. The other thing you can do is you can come up here to the search box, and you type in something like blue crab. And we'll go ahead and type that in. And that brings us back some results. And up here, you have an option for any license. And one of the things that you can do is you can select all Creative Commons. Or you could say, I want commercial usage allowed, modified usage. But if you select all Creative Commons, that then will bring you back photographs that are in Flickr, good quality photographs. Many of these are actually Bay program photos, but they are under the Creative Commons license. So you would be able to use those for your presentations, for your brochures, and for your other works. So Flickr is a really great choice. A lot of high quality images, but there's a lot of low quality images too. And you may have to spend a little bit more time finding images that meet your need using something like Flickr, because it is a widely used tool. You'll get a lot of things that are kind of marked in different ways, whether they're tagged or titled. So some things won't really match up to what you're looking for. So Flickr, again, is another great option. May take you a little bit more time, but again, cost-free. Rights are managed if you're using Creative Commons. Google is another great source. Google has a way to actually search images and make sure that they are cost and royalty free. There's a lot of options for the licensing. Lots of photographs are indexed through Google, which brings up one drawback, is that it can be a lot of overload. You see their time's really blowing up because it's easy to lose a lot of time looking for images on Google, because there are just so many of them. And, there will be some good ones, but there are a lot of not so great ones as well. And if we go to Google for a second, what we find here is that we go to google.com and we just do a search for blue crabs. Of course, that will bring back search results for blue crabs. We can then say, okay, let's go to the images here. And under images, you have search tools. And one of the options here is usage rights. And if you hit on usage rights, you can say label for reuse, label for non-commercial reuse with modification, label for non-commercial reuse. So if we just say label for reuse, we can filter these images, and you can see we can find a whole bunch of crab images. There are other tools here that are really handy. One of my favorites is the size one, because I can look for images that are larger images, better quality, things we might want in a print publication, for instance. I can look at things that would be better for the web, etc. So Google's a fantastic option. There's lots of photos, but do expect to spend some time there because it will take you a while to kind of wade through all of the options. Next, we get into what we call our stock photography services. And I'm going to cover two of them. There are lots of them available out there. And, these are places where you can go buy images that you can use. And you're really buying the licensing rights to use the images. They can be used in different ways. It can save you a lot of time because typically these are moderated, so they're looking for really good quality images. And they tend to be good quality images, large files, things that make your life really easy when it comes to putting together a presentation or, a brochure or a poster, whatever you might be working on. These things are really focused, have great searches. Shutterstock, as an example, has over 78 million photographs, a great search on the site as well. And as you can see, the cost goes up here, but time and rights, you're not going to spend as much time. It will be much easier to find the images you're looking for. We use this service for the Bay program, and it really helps us whether we're doing social media or working on presentations, find really great images that we can use. So if I come here and again, we're going to search for our friend the blue crab. As I begin to type that in, it offers me some choices, but you can see that it shows me a whole bunch of photographs here. Now, of course, not all of these may be the crab that we're looking for, but you do tend to get a lot of good quality images, things that are high resolution, that are just good quality images that you might want to use. So at any rate, excellent resource. Shutterstock is one that we've used for some time at the Bay program. We have a subscription, and there's different kinds of subscription plans that you can get for these, but something I would highly recommend. Plans can start as low as $14.50 per image. So you're paying some money for these. We have an account that gives us, I think, 250 or 300 images a month that we can use. So you're going to pay a lot more money for something like that, though. So that's a great service. One of the other ones is Istock Photography. Istock is one of the first websites out there that really introduced this concept of microstock. It used to be to license an image, you were spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but these services like Istock introduced image licensing, for dollars compared to hundreds of dollars. It's a great service. Their plans start around $11 per image. It can save you a lot of time. They have millions of photographs, a great search. And again, cost goes up, but time goes down and rights are managed. So if we go to their website, Istock, you're greeted by a large search engine. Again, we search for blue crab just as our test search here. And let's give it a shot and see what we get. And again, you're going to get kind of a combination of different images here. But good quality, strong subjects, properly exposed, good technical factors, good quality images. These companies, Shutterstock, Istock, they're choosy about the photos they accept, and the photographers that participate get paid, but it's a smaller licensing fee that they would charge you as an individual. So these are fantastic services. Again, cost goes up, but your time goes down significantly. So those are places that you can look for images. So you know now why images are important. You know what makes a great image. You know now how to find great images. Next, we want to talk about making great photographs. So let's say that you've got a camera or even your phone, your smartphone, and you want to take a great image. What can you do to make better photographs that you might be able to use with your data visualization products? So that's coming up next.